happy now moment, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with you as always. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and an open heart to your listening experience, and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. While listening, you will be exposed to inspiring, empowering, and unifying perspectives that I'm highly confident will yield stellar results in your life if you opt to try them on for size. Also, if you're a longtime P-Head listener, you know I have been diligently working on producing episodes for my new late-night style, consciousness-elevating video talk show, Optimistic. Well, after a year plus in the making, I am thrilled to announce that we will be releasing Season 1's episodes weekly beginning March 15th, and I'm asking for your help to spread the love and to let your friends and family know about Optimistic when it's released. In exchange for taking a minute to share our Episode 1 teaser video on March 15th, or whenever you're hearing this, up through the end of April, we're giving you monthly memberships to not one, but two consciousness-expansive online content portals from two of my very favorite teachers and healers that are valued at over $50 a month, as well as entering your name into a drawing to win a free week at the Mystic Manor for a retreat immersion valued at $2,950, where the winner will be chosen in April. Otherwise, if you're interested in hearing more details about the rewards you'll receive for supporting, we'll send you a video that goes into detail when you text the word Mystic to the number 22999. You can also go to optimistic.tv to see several other videos, including the Optimistic show trailer and two videos that discuss the week-long retreat immersion, as well as details of what the Mystic Manor immersion entails and how you can book a week to come stay with us even if you don't win the raffle. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have the lovely Mia Magic here with me on the show. Mia is a coach and creator of the Making Modern Magik YouTube show. Super happy to have you here, Mia. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's extra nice to have you here in the studio. And to be able to look at you face to face is always a plus for me.
Yeah, I'm better with in-person conversations.
Yeah, it's ideal if possible. So, so I've been really looking forward to this ever since we met. 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah, maybe even longer. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, rolled in my witch hat, and you were like, "I think we need to talk about witchy things."
Yeah, exactly. And you had produced a show on your own,
yes,
much like we're doing with Optimistic, which is, by the way, releasing this Sunday. As of recording right now, it is March 11th, and on March 15th, it is actually going to be released, Episode 1, and episodes are going to be released weekly thereafter. And yeah, I'm super, super excited. It's been a year plus in the making to get to this point. And if you guys are interested in joining the launch and getting a bunch of free goodies, you can text the word Mystic to the phone number 22999. But as soon as we met, Mia, I knew that we had to go deep on a podcast and hear about your journey making your show. And before we do that, I'd like to start off with my very predictable opening question, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over and says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
10 floors. Magic, and allowing human beings to remember the innate and I believe truly instinctual capacity that we have for superhuman gifts and abilities. I just got back from Egypt, and there are 360 senses according to the ancient Egyptians. And
wow.
So my life really is all about helping us to all awaken each of these unique skills and senses that are designed for us in order to live our most magical and most empowered lives, and ultimately serve the planet in becoming a more harmonious and heavenly kind of place for all sentient beings to live.
Is that all?
I know, right?
360 senses?
Yeah.
It's like one for each day.
Yeah, so they, and all
year.
kinds. And so I was like downloading the whole time I was in Egypt. I kept asking like each of the temples, like, what are they, you know? And there were so many different things, like even synesthesia, how people see colors with sounds is one. Being able to communicate with the earth, with the stones, like that's how they, I mean, according to the stones, right?
Right.
According to the stones, how they were all moved and how the pyramids were built is that these people learned to like sing the songs of the stones, basically understand their vibrational frequency and then attune to that, and the stones themselves would like help them be cut and moved and like float, because there are literally even with modern technology, there are no explanations for how these pyramids were built.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting about that whole theory that it was used, sound was used, is we actually are we figured out now how to make things levitate with sound. And, you know, I don't know if they've gotten to the point, or at least not publicly, where you can see anything as big as a giant stone floating. Although there's the place down in Florida. Have you heard about this? Oh, man. It's called... Yeah, okay, just looking it up here, it's called the Coral Castle in Florida, and supposedly this guy, you know, like, he even, I think, if I recall, there's a whole video or documentary on him and his life, and supposedly he would only work on this place called the Coral Castle, which is like super epic, alone at night. He was like this small guy, sort of handicapped in some way, or older for sure, and he had somehow built this place with, you know, massive stones, completely alone. He would never let anyone see him. And supposedly that's like someone one time snuck in and watched him levitating stones and things like that.
It's so funny you mention that, because someone actually did just mention this to me, and I only came through when you said at night. There was this man was doing this at night.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the stones in Egypt, like, it's so wild. But the stones themselves are very vocal if you tune in and listen. And that's another one of the senses they said, is just being able to hear, just being able to listen to the voices in the earth. And so, I mean, these are all kind of like out there things, but when we're talking about mysticism and magic, from my perspective, what I've learned and studied over the last 10 years, really like diving into how to make my own life more magical, but also how to serve other people's lives and becoming more magical. It just seems like this used to be a pretty normal, natural part of our existence as human beings, and we've just gotten pretty far away from it, and I just want to bring it forward. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that used to be natural and normal that have been buried in quote-unquote modern history, and that are now reemerging as we collectively awaken and remember who and what we are. And before we dive deeper down that rabbit hole, why don't you share...
So many rabbit holes.
Why don't you share a little bit about your backstory? I always like to get, some context for who, I'm talking to, and I know the listeners always appreciate that too.
Yeah, so I grew up in Northern California in the redwoods, deep, deep forest vibes, lots of dragons and fairies, and was like a very fantastical little girl. And would like see different beings that were around me, and then when I went to public school, all of a sudden I was just like the biggest loser, and everyone was just, nobody wanted to hang out with me, no one wanted to talk to me, nothing that I believed in or that I was interested in was of any value, and everyone, all these kids that had been programmed in public school the whole first 10 years of their lives, and I hadn't been. I'd been in this crazy hippie private school.
Right.
And those kids just like did not want anything to do with me. And so at 10 or 11 years old, I just started shifting completely into like basically being a muggle and like, okay, how can I be
muggle face?
Exactly. How can I be accepted? How can I be, how can I belong? How can I fit in? And that led me to like a lot of deep self-loathing and misery. And then when I was 16, I got in a car accident and almost lost my arm.
Wow.
And that was a massive wake-up call, but like only to my deep subconscious. Like I was on all this morphine and like having all these realizations and epiphanies and like talking about the magic of my life again. But then once I got off of the IVs and stuff in the hospital, I kind of forgot again. And then just got angry and felt like God was punishing me, and I'll never, like, now I can't do anything. I'm deformed, I'm disfigured. And that led me into like a really deep, just like sort of painful existential period. And at 21, I started dating a Christian guy.
Oh, wow.
And he would have conversations with God. he'd be like, baby, I need to go. And he would close the door and it'd be like he was on the phone with someone.
Wow.
And I was like, who is he talking to? Like, what is happening?
That's funny.
And one day I just looked up. I was like walking down 6th Street in New York City at like 21 years old. And I was like, God? And I just felt, yes, but in the way that the sun shone through the trees and the way that the wind whispered through the leaves and I was like, oh my God, God's all around me. And then it was exactly. And then it was just this like massive rabbit hole, got into like all the conspiracy theories and like all the deep spirituality and like, you know, moved to LA shortly thereafter and learned to meditate and all of the things. And then basically when I started really understanding sort of the double slit experiment and the nature of the holographic universe and that we are in fact creating our reality as the projector of our own consciousness. And I had a friend tell me that I had done this, you know, my accident and her disfiguring myself in my arm, that I'd done it to myself. And at first I was really resistant to that. And I was like, fuck you, bro. Like, no, I didn't. Like, this was done to me. And the moment when I was able to accept that, then everything changed. And then it was like, okay, I can take an empowered stance on my reality. I can do what I need to do in order to feel better about this. And I started healing myself. And then, I just started meeting people that were like, wow, I knew you before. Like, you're so different. Can you help me? And then, my coaching practice started like 6 years ago. And I've just been helping people find their own magic and heal their sort of inner Voldemort since then.
That's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's quite the journey.
That's the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit about, do you want to go in for, I'll give you options. How about that? Not every day I give people options, what I ask. Do you want to go down the rabbit hole a little bit about like history of magic, or would you rather just jump right in and talk about, you know, your show that you made, Making Modern Magik, and of course we can do both. I'll let you decide which
I think that there's a really beautiful weaving of them. So the reason that I made the show is because I have been studying magic and ceremonial magic, ancient traditions, matriarchal societies, goddess worship for a very long time. And so I wanted to go to my two ancestral homelands. So my dad is Italian and my mom is Irish, and both of those places have been, you know, taken over by the Roman Catholic Church and actually have deep roots in like pagan goddess worshiping
Celtic. I mean, we've got Celtic
traditions,
symbols all around us right at this moment.
Druid traditions. So that's where I wanted to start, because I was like, okay, this is what genetically in this lifetime, this is what for me has created sort of like some of my deep underlying programs. And so I went, and I mean, I one of the hardest things about being in Italy was that you don't hear about the goddesses at all. There's there's like barely any mention of them. There's, Caesar built this, or Caesar, one of the first Caesars, was said to be a descendant of the goddess Venus, but then there's no acknowledgement of her anywhere. It's all like the father and the son and this and that, and it's because of the church. And so, you know, in like what we're talking about and being in Egypt, there's a temple that the Egyptologists won't tell you this, but that some other people that are getting permission to be down there are saying that this temple might be like 30,000 years old.
Wow.
And so I believe, and I've been experiencing, you know, we hear all of these other lives about Lemuria and Atlantis. There's all these ancient civilizations that we hear about. And I just think, especially when we talk about the history of magic and how the Bible affected people, literate people, because you learned to read the Bible, because that was the first book that was in mass production, and printed on a mass scale. And so if you're in charge of what the Bible says, and that's the main thing that people are learning to read, then you can teach people literally whatever you want. And so I just think that all of our like deep, true history has been wiped out and has been eliminated from our popular wisdom and knowledge. And so, I mean, God, the oldest shamanic burial site ever found, the only two remnants in it, 40,000 years old, the only two remnants in it were menstrual blood and swan wings.
Wow.
And where the story of like Jesus's blood, like giving the blood of Christ, where that comes from is from the Divine Mother, because women bleed every month without violence. You don't need to cut anything.
Right.
So that blood was the blood that we would receive, and that was like the most sacred thing. And yeah, all of that. Even the word taboo comes from menstruation, because like it became this thing that was now like something we're not supposed to talk about, even though it used to be. And like the only time it stops is when that blood itself is creating life. You know, there's so much magic that we just fight and resist. Even like sex, you know, like I do a lot of tantra and sex magic and help people like heal their sexual shame and wounds. And it's crazy. Like we just shame so many parts of what is actually our access points to the deepest and highest magic.
Yeah. So very interesting.
It's so many things. There's so many channels.
So many channels.
Yeah.
It really is so interesting, and it's so cool to see such a renewed interest in all things magical too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all over all the, you know, you've referenced Harry Potter a few times. I mean, it's just like people are obsessed with it, even whether it's just on a very superficial kind of fun way for whatever reason they're drawn, or they're like, you know, us and our hippie friends that are really like going deep down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's everywhere in all directions, and there's a reason for that, I believe.
Yeah. That's why I really wanted to do that with my show. And the tagline is bringing the ancient way to the modern day, because now like my partner's like a total biohacker and futurist and like into all this tech, and like sits me down on these like water beds with scalar waves and like heart transponders and little dolphin stuffed animals and stuff. He's like, here, baby, like enjoy this. And I'm like, ooh. You know, there's like all these different kinds of magic. And I just wanted to.
I want to know what the dolphin part is.
Oh my God, dolphin transponder. The guy, Don Estes, you know him? He's like the OG biohacker.
Yeah.
He lives in the Palisades.
I know of him. I don't know
He's
him.
a wizard.
Yeah.
He's awesome. Yeah, we went over to his house the other day because he and my partner are doing a little project. Anyways, it's super cool stuff. And yeah, I just really feel like so much of what we're utilizing in terms of technology, we actually have those capacities within ourselves. We can create telepathic communication, and so I think that the reason why it's all like such a big deal, number one, I think that J.K. Rowling actually lived in the wizarding world and was like obliviated, which is what they call when they like Men in Black someone's memory. And I think she just like, you know, recalled it all and like wrote it down because it's too rich and real for her not to have like actually lived in it. And but I always wonder, I'm like, what did she do? Like, you know, how did she get in trouble for them to be like, okay, you're out?
So let me just interject real quick. One of the funny things that instantly makes me think of is I knew this guy. He was an ayahuasquero, very trippy guy. And one day I was talking to him, and I've shared this on the podcast before, and it makes me laugh. I was talking to him. We were actually at Burning Man, and all of a sudden he just starts gazing off, and he's like, oh, by the way, one of my gifts is I can see, you know, what people's souls are comprised of, and we're actually, you know, these composite beings. And he's like, you're actually 5% Luke Skywalker, and I just like cracked up. And he goes into this thing. He's, you're 5% Luke Skywalker with 2% or 3% activated, and he went into this whole spiel. And he said, basically, he went on to say that all these stories are real stories. Yeah. It's all happened. It's all real, and it's all being recalled in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. And so, you know, and then you think of a story, you know, the way we make movies now, right? If everything is fractal in nature, right? It's nested dolls within nested dolls within that. So when I watch the movie about NWA and see, you know, Ice Cube portrayed by his son or Dr. Dre or whoever it was, right? It's like, oh, hold on, here's a movie about someone's life who actually just played out this whole thing 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It's like story within story, nested within story. And it's just like, you know, it's a very interesting thing to think about. Like, oh, here's another nested version of this story on this planet called Earth that is somehow reflective of this other dimension or place or time. And it's a trip to consider.
Honestly, I do that with my content. I'm always like, okay, if I'm going to watch something, this is like either for me to learn like about another life, like how Khaleesi in Game of Thrones. I'm like, oh, this is literally for me to know who I am and like how to bring dragons back. Like, okay, you know? And then like I pretty much only watch like like kids movies or like stuff that's magical, because the kids movie there's so much like more infinite possibility, and so I feel like I'm training my subconscious mind with like positive creations as opposed to like, oh, all this killing and whatever. So like, yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the Jedi or the Luke Skywalker, because the Jed, D-J-E-D, is actually like an ancient Egyptian magical technology to like charge up your spine and like your Ka body and your energy body, and that's where the word Jedi comes from. Yeah. And is like the ancient Egyptian traditions of creating magic in your body and in your system, and like generating the force within you that you can do just with breath and like with movement and with sound and all of these like super simple technologies. And then that's how they would use the force. And that's like from Egypt. That's what they were doing. The force is how they made the pyramids. You know? Ah, it's so cool.
That's so cool. So tell us a little bit about your show.
So my show is called Making Modern Magik. It was, like I said, my journey through, I went to Italy and Ireland first, actually, and we participated in a 6,000-year-old Druid ritual that's been happening for so long, and I think probably even longer than that, but, you know, that's, again, going back to, like, the recorded history that the Romans gave us. And, it's so we went to Ireland and we talked, I mean, like, the first day I got there, I saw a leprechaun, like, dip around the corner. It was like I was completely sober. It's like the first morning there. I'm like walking out the door, and it was like these little leaves, like little legs made of leaves, like shot around the corner right in front of me. And I was like, whoa,
what was that?
What is happening? And in Ireland, it's like a normal thing. It's totally normal that, of course, there are elemental beings here. And, you know, there's all these trees. If it's a fairy tree, there's all these little ribbons tied on it and little gifts, you know, and like people leave things for the elemental beings because they completely accept that they're a part of reality and that they're a part of our life here on Earth without any question or hesitation. And it's not like, oh, that guy's crazy, he's talking to the fairies. It's like, no, that guy's smart because he's working with the elemental beings of his land in order to like have his crop go well or whatever the case may be. So so my show is, I honestly, there's an episode that makes me very deeply uncomfortable. Doing the kind of work that I do with people, like a real live healing session, where I'm like fully ugly crying and it's just mortifying. But I felt like it was really important because a lot of everything that we do and talk about in the rabbit holes is like very conceptual and very intellectual, and that's all well and good. And from my perspective, how we actualize this magic in ourselves is by alleviating and healing like the darkness and the density and the parts that hurt and that believe something negative or something disempowering. And so my show is a journey through, it's basically like a magical travel doc. And like, what does it look like to have the intention to live in the wizarding world and operate in the sort of real world? To me, the wizarding world is the real world. You know, and to operate in the world with people who like maybe don't know about these ancient rituals. When I got to Ireland, nobody even knew what I was there for. I was like, oh yeah, I'm here for the Beltane ritual. And everyone was like, what? You know, and that's their people's history and they don't even know about it. So we went on this cool adventure and we went to this awesome little island where UFOs are supposed to land all the time in Italy, called Ischia. It's a hot springs island. And we just went all over the place, visited some friends in England, and it was really a powerful journey. And for us, you know, we didn't do the like quick or the long drawn out thing. We did the like quick. We traveled in May. We were gone for a whole month. We filmed the whole month. We came back. We edited the whole month of June, and then we put the show out. So it's all up. The whole series is up on YouTube, and season 2 will be coming out this year as well. I haven't decided quite yet. I'm like, where should I go? I might go to the White Lions in South Africa. I might go to
someone just told me all about that. Literally 2 days ago. Like, so to me, that's like total synchronicity because literally 2 days ago, someone was here telling me all about the White Lion thing, which I'd never heard.
The people that I was with in Egypt, that's a huge part of their work. They work with the White Lions and really wanting to get those prophecies out. And one of the priestesses that was with us on the trip channels the White Lions. And we did our full moon in Leo's ceremony, and then most people left. And then we had a full, like the lions were channeling through her, like speaking voices of lions. It was wild. Yeah, so
Whoa.
I know. I'm like, okay.
I think that's the one because literally this conversation just happened in this room.
Great.
Like,
wow.
3 days
Amazing.
ago.
Yeah, I've been feeling really called to. I've always wanted to go to South Africa. My grandmother actually bought me a flight to go there years ago, and then something happened and I had to change the flight, and I didn't end up going, and I still haven't been back. And I feel like it's because I wasn't meant to go until I was really going to be there to like serve the prophecy, really. And that's it's all about the white lions coming back into, and because white lions are so rare, and we don't have to get into all of that, but it's okay, great, perfect.
Are you a Leo by chance?
I'm not. I'm a Gemini.
Okay.
What are you?
Leo.
Oh yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. You seem so fiery, so I just figured you must have a lot of fire.
You know what's so funny? I have no fire in my
Really?
chart. I know. I'm just a fiery ass person. My astrologer literally is like, you're like Captain Planet. Like you have all the other elements in your chart, and then you are just straight fire.
That's wild.
It's the dragon thing.
It's wild. It's a dragon. It's a dragon thing. You wouldn't understand.
I'm just a dragon.
You astrologists wouldn't understand.
Yeah. And that's another thing, that was really powerful in my show. I met this dragon, which you guys can go and see how that all happens. And, dragons, that's one of the things that really got me into studying like ancient history and magic, is because dragons are present in every major mythology all across the planet.
True.
Everyone has them. So I was just like, how?
Why is everyone talking about this thing that doesn't exist?
Doesn't exist. Oh, it's like so bad. But then like why, this is another part of and if anyone is interested in like really understanding our language and how we operate as human beings, there's a book called Alphabet versus the Goddess by Leonard Shlain that will change your entire perspective on reality. It's magnificent.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about like the invention of the printing press.
Cool.
And the subtitle is How the Sex of God Was Changed.
Wow.
Yeah. And so basically, I was doing all this studying about dragons, and there was a certain period where dragons were like these mystical, powerful beings, and then all of a sudden, around the same time as the printing press, dragons became this thing that was supposed to be slain, and you're a hero if you slay the dragon, and you're exactly what we need. Like, they villainized the dragons instead of the dragons being the thing that like they would pray to or that they're super grateful for. And that's because in like the really, really deep traditions, dragons are super feminine, that like serpentine energy, but they can fly, and they have all of this, like they guard the treasure, right?
Magic.
It's like, exactly. And like the grail, the holy grail, ultimately is the womb. It is like the creation of life. And so dragons were guarding that most sacred treasure, which is the womb and the feminine and the goddess. And then all of a sudden it's like, let's kill all the dragons.
right.
And so that was a big thing for me also in the show, that I didn't talk as much as I would have liked to, but I'm very much like, I feel very, very deeply resonant with the dragons, and that is that sort of like fierce feminine warrior-esque kind of energy that's like here to support creation as opposed to destruction.
Right.
And and then I went to Crete after Egypt. I literally just got back 2 weeks ago, and Crete used to be run by bare-breasted temple priestesses, like fully matriarchal society, and it's so wild how we just forget. The church has just like wiped all of that truth out.
Right.
There was this like temple that called me. I was like, I'm going to go to these ruins. And I go up there, and Artemis was the first goddess that I ever really worked with. And I go up, and there's a church, and they're like, this used to be a temple to Artemis. I was like, cool. Like, thanks, guys.
Thanks for hijacking.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So that's really like what my show is. The intention is just to like give people a little bit more information about magic, because I think that it is, and it can be something that's part of our normal everyday reality. I mean, that's what synchronicity is, right?
Yep.
And so that's really what the basis of the show is about, and to let people see that it's not all fun and games. It's not all light and love and rainbows and unicorns. Like, I would really like for it to be, I would love to just like soar out of here on a dragon instead of my Range Rover, but that's not really what's happening yet. And so my intention with the show is to just support as many people as I can, and like seeing how to make magic in their own lives, so that ultimately before I die at like 250 or whatever.
At 250 or whatever. I love that. This
planet is magical, and we're living in harmony. That's what I want.
Such a witch answer.
I know. Well, I'm here to like be like Professor McGonagall. Like that's like, I'm gonna be her eventually. That's what we're moving towards. Young Professor McGonagall right now.
I love it. So you mentioned manifesting. Let's talk about using magic to manifest.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics. Yeah, my course is called Manifest Your Magic, and that's what it's all about. It's about utilizing the principles of manifestation, which are you have to heal different things. If you have belief systems that are in your way, if you don't believe that you're worthy of money, it's going to be really challenging to get it.
Yeah.
And if you do, it's going to be very challenging to keep it.
Yeah.
And so the primary baseline foundational element of utilizing magic is around intention, attention, and your belief system. So what are you placing your attention on? Because if you want to do an abundance spell, but all you're doing is placing your attention on how you don't have money, or what you don't have, or how awful these people are, or whatever the case may be, it's going to be really hard to align and attune to the frequency of abundance, which is a state of gratitude and a state of appreciation and a state of joy or freedom, or whatever you perceive that money will bring to you. So yeah, in my course, we work through all the different belief systems around scarcity and abundance, around self-worth, self-love, sex, because like I said, I think that sex magic and utilizing orgasmic manifestation is one of the most powerful ways that we can draw anything to us. And so there are so many ways that you can utilize magic to manifest what you desire. I mean, one of my favorite things, I talk about this a lot, is a honey jar spell. And you just use a little jar and you put a little honey into it and you write out whatever it is that you're calling into your life, and the honey represents the sweetness of that. Ooh. So whether it's a partner or more money or, a book deal or whatever it is, you write out all the things that it makes you feel. Having this book deal makes me feel so empowered. I'm so excited to be able to share X, Y, and Z with all these people. Or in this partnership, I feel so supported. I feel so seen. I feel so held. I'm so, alive and in love, and whatever it is. And you just write all these little things down and you put them in the jar and you pour the honey over it. And you could also add magnetic dust. That's a really good one to literally draw it in, or a little pinch of cinnamon. And then you put the top on the jar, put a little votive candle, make sure it has no plastic, and you just light the candle and let the candle melt over the jar. And I mean, my friend Sahara, I'm sure you know Sahara Rose, she got her house within 1 week. I met my partner within a few weeks of doing that. It's a super magical spell and really, really works all the time. And I think the biggest thing in terms of utilizing manifestation or magic to manifest is that your intention really, from my perspective, if it's about money or if it's about partnership, it's what are you doing with that?
Yeah.
What is the money for? The way that you and I both funded our own shows, and we're I want to utilize my abundance to share magic or mysticism or positivity with others. That's
right.
what I want to do.
Right.
And that's, I believe, why I was able to get the funding and pull it off and make it happen. And so, if you want a partnership because you're feeling empty inside or because you feel lonely, then actually the most magical way of finding your partner is to deal with what the root system is of your loneliness and why you feel not enough, or why you feel a partner will complete you. Okay, well, what's the part of you that's feeling incomplete? And there's so many different magical ways to do that. I mean, breath work is probably the simplest, most magical thing that you can do at any given time, right? I mean, you're into all of those same things. And so, yeah, I mean, in my course, we go through all the different things, like I said, orgasmic manifestation. But if you have shame around your pussy, or even that word, or moon blood, and if you're thinking that oh God, I shouldn't be having sex with this person, or oh, this is bad, then it's going to be really hard to use the most powerful energy in the universe, which is orgasmic energy, to call in that thing that you want to create.
Right.
So yeah, my private, that's why I'm a coach, really, is that I want to help people move through whatever the bullshit is that's keeping them from their magic. And it's actually quite simple. And then once you do that and you believe oh, I can make this little house out of twigs, and this represents the house that I'm building in my life or for my life. And then all of a sudden, boom, you've found your house because you let yourself, that's called sympathy magic. So utilizing something that would be similar or like a representation of the thing which you desire. So if you use little twigs and you're going to like build yourself a house, then you're using sympathy magic as like, okay, these twigs represent the foundation or the structure of my home. And it's all like, oh my God, it's so easy and so good. I could literally talk about that for hours. I'm like, what else do you want to know?
Right. You know, yeah, just I think like you said, attention and intention is so important. Yeah. And that's why any ritual is just so smart. I mean, you can make up your own right now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be powerful if you put in the right attention and intention. And
I did that here at your house when because we came for the solstice and you were doing the show, and I was like, we need a ritual. Who wants to do a ritual?
Yeah,
and
that's right. You did. That's right.
I was like, all right, guys, we're going to do a movement, a breath, a proclamation, and that's it. It's just going to be short and sweet, but like, let's do a ritual.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Bashar, I'm sure you're familiar with Bashar, he calls them permission slips. Wow. You know, you're such a powerful creator, but where we're at in our own evolution, we still have sort of these ideas of we need something to go from A to Z. Okay, so how do we get to B and C and D? Okay, well, here's this ritual thing that gives power to making it all work or whatever the story is around it.
Yeah.
Then, you know, whatever that permission slip is, and by all means, you know, and I think that's a really interesting and intelligent way to look at it. It's permission slips.
It's funny because people call me a permissionary.
Yeah, I love that.
Traveling around. Instead of a missionary, I'm a permissionary. Like, just be your most magical self.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a really beautiful ritual last night called Drawing Down the Moon. That's like just Qigong, basically. And you just like breathe in the moonlight and like send it as a channel and bring your hands down with the channel like through all of your chakras, your crown, your third eye, your throat, your heart, your solar plexus, your womb or your hara, and then into your roots. And it was and it wasn't, it wasn't even like, we weren't like really doing anything.
Yeah.
You're just like taking a breath and like envisioning moonlight coming down through your chakras. And it was so powerful. I'm a little hesitant sometimes about bringing my partner to the like witchy rituals. He's still a little like, but like he had so much fun. He was like, wow, that felt really good. I was like, yes, I know. More rituals. Exactly.
That's so good. So let's see, where do we take this next? So let's talk a little bit about alchemy.
Yeah.
The act of transmuting something, from one thing into another.
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, that's really what that one episode that I was talking about with the ugly crying is about. I think that every time that we are willing, and this is, just so you guys know, this is like the hardest thing you can ever do, okay? It's not easy.
Right.
But when you can acknowledge that you have something that is painful or something that is challenging or something that is holding you back and keeping you from being your most magical self or your most powerful self, whatever. You don't have to use the word magic. Magic is the same as energy or power or spirit or whatever. You don't have to use that word. That's just the word that I use for it.
Yep.
And when you have the courage to dive into that thing instead of get drunk or go have sex or go party or do drugs or like distract yourself with escapism.
Yep.
When you decide to go into whatever that darkness is, just by making that decision, you are already beginning the alchemical process. And by making that decision, it might take you 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years to deal with what that thing is. But from my perspective, transpersonal alchemy is actually like what these it's all what we were just talking about before. I think that the alchemical texts have been translated to be as if we're talking about turning lead into gold, but really it's because they had to hide the truth in metaphor about the fact that we're talking about ourselves becoming godlike. Golden. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And when you look at the colors in like the ancient alchemy texts, they're using red and white, which were like the ancient colors of Tantra. And it's just all too complex to me for it to just be like, oh, we're talking about making gold. Like we didn't really need gold back then,
right.
But especially before money, it was like, no, everyone traded for everything. So for me, the alchemy is like, even I'll use my own experience and my own example. So this scar, you guys can't see it, but I have a huge scar. My whole left forearm looks like snake skin. And at first I was like, this is ugly. I'm deformed. I'm disfigured. God hates me. I'm being punished. This will never, I'll never amount to anything because of this. And through, like I said, many years of dealing with it, it actually was the first viral video that I had was when I was talking about it.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, here's the real deal. Mm-hmm. People from my past don't know about what happened to me now, or like where I've come now with it. And people in my present don't even notice because I used to cover it up and it was like this whole thing. And so the biggest like alchemical experience that I had that shifted my relationship to understanding alchemy and magic was that this thing that I had told myself, these deep stories about how fucked up it was and how bad and how awful and horrible it was, became actually the vessel for me to talk to people about turning tragedy into triumph.
Wow.
Or turning like a trial and tribulation into a triumph.
Right.
And it was like I alchemized the belief system that was, this is bad, people will judge me, they're gonna think I'm ugly, no one will like me, no one's gonna want to be friends with me, whatever it was, into, actually, because, I'm pretty and I'm intelligent and I come from a good family and all the things, people might not actually always be able to resonate with me. If I'm going to tell someone like, oh, this is how you heal your life, they're going to be like, fuck you, bitch, you don't know shit. Like, you come from this amazing life. Like, what have you ever had to heal?
Right.
What have you ever had to deal with? Like, oh, your poor little life with your loving parents, And I totally get that. 100%. Yep. And so I had to like be in a hospital for months and have 3 years without a functioning arm and people doing the retard thing at me, like, in order to actually have some, what's the word? Like, oh my God, I'm like blanking on the word, but
contrast.
Yeah,
context.
yes. It starts with an A, but I can't think of it. Anyways, whatever. But to have overcome something.
Yep.
To have actually dealt with adversity.
Right.
Thank you. That was my word. To have dealt with adversity in order to say like, okay, you can have a beautiful life too.
Yep.
You can have whatever you desire. And I only know that that's true because that whole period of time, like I was broke out, like my parents weren't helping me. I was like not making money. I was so sad and so miserable. And then now to be living the life that I am is like night and day, and like my dreams, like that I can make my show about whatever I want and like talk about magic with awesome people. Like, what? I couldn't have even imagined that being possible a few years ago. And so like to me, that's the purpose of alchemy, is for us to be able to not only conceptually believe in what was once impossible to us, but to be able to live in and embody it.
Yeah.
That's the becoming gold, right? That's the turning lead into gold. I was a muggle and now I'm a wizard.
Yep.
Like, that's fucking awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, like that's what else?
And if you can do it, anyone can do it. And it's just taking and shifting, rewriting the story surrounding your arm and what it means and how and why, and now all of a sudden it feels like an empowering tool for you.
Totally.
Right?
And it took that courage to be like, okay, I'm going to talk about this.
Yeah.
And that was why it was the first video that I'd ever made, and that like went all over, like it went viral on Facebook and YouTube, and it was all just like me being vulnerable.
Yeah.
It was just me being like, this is the truth, and like here was this horrible thing that happened to me that like I want to make into a positive thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do that, but I'm just sharing that that's what I want to do. And by sharing it, all these people were so inspired. And then that's how my following started building and started happening. And it was like, whoa, okay. Wow, people just want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
People just want to hear what's real.
Vulnerability is a superpower. It is like the ultimate superpower.
Yeah.
We're so used to like posturing and I think that's one of the things that's been led to the success of this show. Same thing. It's like, I'm not scared to be really vulnerable and just put it out there and like, okay, this is, something that is I'm working on or I've struggled with or whatever. Yeah. When you have something as powerful as that and you're really vulnerable with it, you are a permissionary. You're giving others the permission to be vulnerable to.
Yeah, and I think that, just to acknowledge you, that's something, and I'm sure Aubrey as well, like, we need men who are doing that. Mm-hmm. Because we can't say like, oh, it's more important for women to do it because women have been so oppressed. It's like, oh, but it's more important for men to do it because men, like, no, everyone. And I think that, the rising feminine energy, I personally think that we're unstoppable at this point.
Yeah.
And so to me, there is a depth of impact that when a man is brave enough to share his shit and the stuff that like makes being a father challenging and makes being a man in the modern day and a partner and a lover and a son and a brother and a friend and all of the things, I think that actually at this point in history is more impactful simply because it's so unheard of. And like men have never shared those deep, transparent thoughts. And so I'm super grateful that you're the kind of man that not only is leading the charge and doing that, but then is willing to like have women come on and do the things, because I think that's our collective alchemy.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
It's not just like me and my story and you and your story. It's that if we all make these choices and we all decide to deal with our shit and turn our lead into gold, then we're going to be more likely to empower one another and support one another and be excited for each other's things and like let it all just rise up and out. And then ultimately, I mean, I believe we can live in a different kind of planet. I really do.
I think it's well on its way. Like you said, I think it's unstoppable at this point because everyone, you know, well, maybe everyone's a strong word, but so many people, they hear this information, they hear this podcast, they hear these perspectives, and it's like it's like this little bell is going off in their subconscious of like, hold on, there's something to this. Oh, this really rings true. Because as I always say, we can't really teach anyone anything. We can help people remember what their soul has, you know, what they have amnesia to in this moment. But we all know it's all deep in our core of who and what we are and our destiny. It's our past, it's our future. And, you know, really mankind has been in a little timeout, I think, from who and what they are actually by design, so that you can have the contrast. You can't know that what you are unless you know that what you are not. The way I've heard it put that really makes sense, and I'd be curious your thoughts, is for example, the Mayans talk about these 13,000 year cycles where we go from, it's like when we go through a phase of separation from source, the masculine energy takes the lead. It's like it's a dangerous environment. It's separation mentality. It's us against the world. It's war. It's battle. And then when it comes time to, okay, we've played that out to the fullest. We've gotten what we can from that experience. Time to come back home to unification. Now the divine feminine steps back into the leadership role. That feminine energy, you see it rising in men. You know, like I look at my grandfather and he's like straight up like Jack Palance from the movie City Slickers. If you've ever seen that, like, you know, the man's man who probably never cried a drop in his life, you know, that go back 1 or 2 generations and that was every man, you know, well, pretty much. And now you've got all these men who are really tapping into their feminine energy as well as their masculine. And so, you know, and you have this uprising of goddess energy and feminine energy being respected the way it should be and moving into its true power and not being repressed. And obviously we still have more work to do with that, but it's definitely, the movement is moving. And so I feel like there's some real truth to that, like cycle of, you know, separation, unification. So this is what Source does. This is how Source creates contrast throughout eternity. Okay, we've had 13,000 years of this separation shit. Time to come home. Okay, we've been here really like warm and cozy and fuzzy for 13,000 years. Okay, let's do a separation spell again, you know? And I think that's the way it's
time to appreciate it.
Yeah, right. And so I believe we have moved into that, and we're just freshly into this new cycle, you know, as of 2012 of, you know, the feminine rise again.
I certainly hope so. And one of the things that I think, you know, like the reason I just was acknowledging you for your transparency and vulnerability is that the only issue that I have with it at this point, and like I'm a wild ass dragon queen kind of goddess worshiping woman, but like we can't let the matriarchy just replace the patriarchy.
Totally.
It's like a truly empowered woman knows that her man is not only her equal, but like her necessary support system. And that goes for same-sex couples, you know, it just depends on which polarity you're playing, right? But it's really all about like knowing that our gifts are meant to support one another. And so if women have like these extra senses or are able to divine the wisdom from the earth and like receive these oracular transmissions in order to know like, okay, this is where we plant the seeds, or like this is the direction that we go in, then men are meant to protect that. And to guard that and to keep all of that safe. You know, my partner is gonna go do the Knights Templar, like coming up out of the woodwork again, and he got called in to like go get initiated. I'm like, fuck yes, let's do this, like the ancient holy warriors, like the keepers of the wisdom of the womb, and like the dragons were, and so I feel like it's necessary. How would we all, if we were all just floating around in like the perfection of the goddess all the time? I mean, I think now that I would like that, but I feel like maybe we would get bored.
At some point in time, you'd want to.
You'd be like, okay,
contest.
let's like check some other shit out, and what the Mayans and the cycles. Like I think you said, like we've been a bad boy or like we've been on timeout, and like again, my partner's this total futurist, has like very deep extraterrestrial, intergalactic, celestial experiences. He probably won't listen to this, so it's okay.
It doesn't matter.
I'm going to just tell his secret. And he got this like full visceral transmission from the Galactic Council that we have to step up now if we actually want to be welcomed back into the council. We've been on full timeout, not just like as our planet, but from the Galactic Council of like, no, all these other planets and all these other beings where we talk about all these star systems, the Arturians and the Lyrans and like all the, I'm not super like, I'm an Earth goddess, I'm down here, but all the people that are all up there and all into those things. He says that like this is our opportunity. Yeah. This like letting the feminine and the masculine become like the most synergistic equals that they possibly can is what is required for us to be able to be in a planetary council. Yeah. How weird is your audience? Am I like totally?
Oh no, right you're good. They've heard weirder.
Okay. And I really like it because weird. The original definition of weird meant destiny. So someone who was weird was just moving in the direction of their destiny.
I love it.
It was like, oh, you're weird.
I'm right on track.
Fuck yeah, weirder the better.
Right on track.
Yeah. So that's what I feel very excited about. Especially like being the kind of. People would probably think I'm like such a staunch feminist, but I feel very balanced in my masculine and feminine, and I love that masculine energy. Like we need it. Like
we cannot swing too far back. The pendulum swinging too far the other direction just creates more imbalance.
Yeah, it's not about women.
There's so much of that, and yes, there's been lots of things out of balance on our planet, and then these people that want to take it so far the other direction, it's like, okay, let's throw it in balance, balance the other direction, and it's not where it's at. I'm with you 111%.
Yeah, we're not trying to replace the men. We're trying to empower them to be in their fullest and deepest magic so that we can be too without anyone being
Everyone
threatened.
Playing their proper role.
Exactly.
What a concept.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Everyone is worthy and has a role to play,
Yeah, and not feeling threatened or intimidated by another's power because like they're meant to have that power, and any power you see in another is a reflection of you. That's and exactly. It's a possibility.
I always talk about that. The instead of comparison in a negative way, I always say, look, if it's showing up in your movie, in your field, on your Instagram feed, whatever it is, it's showing up because it's a vibrational reflection of you in some way.
Yes.
So if it's something or someone that you admire, instead of saying, oh, I'll never be that, or I don't have that, or look at their, how successful, forget all that. Instead say, wow, that thing that I admire and appreciate is actually showing up as a reflection, and everything that shows up in my movie is a reflection of me in some way, shape, or form. So I'm calling in more of that thing into my reality. Yahoo!
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 Exactly. That's why I use the word magic. And that's why the permissionary thing is such a thing for me, is because we've relegated it to stories and fantasy and fairy tales as if it's not something that is also a vibrational reflection of us. Yeah. You read Harry Potter, you watch The Magicians, that's my favorite show. You watch Game of Thrones, whatever it is, that magic is all possible. Mm-hmm. You can have any part of that. It's just about okay, what are the beliefs that tell you that they're not? Like that story that I told you with the floating.
Right. Okay. Yes. Let's get to that, because perfect timing that you bring that up. So Mia here has quite the story. As you guys know, or Mia, you may not know this, the listeners do. I always like a story of synchronicity, serendipity, positive paranormal story, magical story, and I think your story definitely qualifies.
Yeah, I got a lot of those.
Well, if you want to share more than one, we're never going to turn away a good magical story. So
great. Well, this one in particular, I was part of a wizard group, and we tried to lift this guy. Right, we had a
levitate. Right.
Well, first we just tried to lift him. 6'2", about 200 pounds, me and 2 other women. We were only using 2 fingers, pointer and middle finger on each hand, one under the knee, one under the armpit, and then the other girl was behind both armpits while he was sitting in a chair. We try to lift him, of course, we can't lift him. And then we did this charging ritual, and we did football huddle, everyone's hands on top of each other, and we must have done that on top of his head, round and around, and this guy leading the circle, charging us up and pumping us up and getting us all. I was the leader, so he was really working me and dialing me up. And then, after probably only a couple of minutes, he was like, now. And we, shot this guy up into the air on 4 fingers of each of us, 3 women, all my size, tiny, petite women. And he's just floating there at eye level in front of me. And I admit that because of my subconscious programming up until that point, I freaked out. And I was like, oh my God, okay, put him down. And we let him down gently, but the whole time I couldn't even feel his weight in my hands.
Wow.
Couldn't even feel, not a pound.
Wow.
Not anything. Wow. He was just floating in our hands.
Wow.
And then I had this tantric orgasmic bliss state that I'd only ever experienced in 5-MeO DMT, but it was this embodied, I was just like, oh my God.
Right.
For 2.5 hours afterwards.
Really?
Because the magic was literally just pumping through me.
Wow.
And there wasn't there wasn't a closing out of it, so I didn't really know what to do with it. And I mean, yeah, it just in my head, it was oh my God, this is possible. This is real. This is I just made this guy float. How magical is that? And yeah, I mean, that just really changed the game for me. That's the moment when I was okay, this isn't just Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I was already interested, but it was still very conceptual for me.
Yeah.
And this was 5 or 6 years ago. And I, from that moment on, I was okay, maybe levitation isn't my particular skill, because I required that guy who was kind of harnessing or wielding the power. But I was but I'm going to find out what my powers are. And that's why, I've been, doing... It's funny, I was thinking about coming on the show and doing it in my British accent, because I had one of my other really good magical stories was I was at Burning Man at the Talk to God phone. And so I found the other end of the phone where you can be God.
I did that too.
And I sat down, and this is the voice that emerged.
Oh, wow.
And I spoke to all these people, and a lot of people were oh my God, I knew God was British. I'm I'm actually from Northern California, but okay. And they've done all these studies on people where when you use a different accent, you don't have any of your childhood programming, you don't have any of your identity, because it's not your accent, it's not your voice.
Yeah.
And so when you use a different accent, you can actually channel really clearly. And so I sat down at the God phone, and people were asking me fucking crazy questions.
Yeah.
The only way people really know that I'm not British is because I say too much, because I'm so Californian. But why did my father kill himself? Where is my grandfather now? All crazy shit that I couldn't possibly have known. And I was standing by the sides of lakes with people and their grandfathers, telling them what he was telling me to tell them about why they're fishing, getting messages from the dads who had committed suicide and telling the person. I sat there for 6 hours.
Wow.
And almost every single person left in tears. One guy dropped to his knees after he got out. Everyone was this was the best conversation I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
And so I actually stayed in this accent for a while, and I practiced living in the accent for 2 months. And that was one of the craziest, most wildly synchronistic things that would happen to me all the time. Just channel through, all of this information would come through because of this voice, because it wasn't me, because Mia wasn't there, she wasn't in the way. And so that's when my mediumship came online, was using the accent. And now, I can really tune into people's dead. I don't advertise this. I've never even said this out loud on any kind of platform anywhere, but now I can do it.
Wow.
A lot of my clients that have lost people, we do really deep work with the deceased and help them rewire subconscious problems and programs from someone who's passed on in their family. Just it's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's just I'm oh my God. And then your brain kind of explodes and you're okay, magic is real.
Magic
and every day it's still, that's the alchemy, and that's the show, and everything. Every day it's still an unwinding process.
Yeah.
It's more. Okay, how much more can you
Call in.
Call in and allow yourself to receive and be filled with.
Yeah. Abracadabra.
Exactly. Create as I speak.
I create as I speak, it means. And we are all casting spells, and this has been quite the spell we've cast here today.
Yeah, it's a good spell.
This has been epic. We are spelling as we speak. So as we kind of wind down here, is there anything in particular that I haven't asked that you feel called to share, or, you know, anything that bubbles up for you?
Well, I think a big thing for you have a lot of female listeners.
Yes, more female than male.
Great.
Actually.
So one thing that I would like to just leave you ladies with, and then if I may, like, do a little prayer blessing to close out, that would be great.
Of course.
Okay. So one thing that I would really like to leave you ladies with, I recently just got into partnership, and I had been celibate for 3 years. And one of the things that has been most powerful in, like, calling in your king is everything that we're talking about right now. I'm going to, like, just channel it into them. All of this magic. Your pussy is the most powerful portal. There is a reason why it is designed for pleasure. You are meant to experience pleasure. And anything that tells you that you're not worthy of pleasure, that you're not worthy of the kind of lovemaking or the kind of partnership that you desire to have, fuck that. Find the root of it. Find where it comes from. You can come take my course. You can coach with me. You can do it on your own. There's hundreds of thousands of coaches and teachers and books and all of the things that you can do. But, like, find the root that says that you shouldn't be a goddess, whatever that is in your subconscious and in your psyche, and alchemize that, transcend that, because my man loves me being myself so much, and I could never have called in the kind of empowered partnership and, like, true, like, giant Viking knight that I have had if I was pretending to be someone else.
Yeah.
If I wasn't being vulnerable and transparent and, like, doing all of this work on my own. And so I just know, like, how big of a thing partnership is for women. And the same goes for money.
Yep.
You know, that's the other thing. Everybody wants to make more money. The same goes for money. If you want more money, like, dive into the root of why you feel like you don't have it or you can't have it, and deal with that first. And then you will literally be able to fill that space that once said, oh, I'm not worthy of love, or oh, I'm not worthy of money. You'll be able to fill that space with not only the worthiness of love and money, but with love and money itself, or whatever the thing is that you're calling in. But that's a really big one, because women, even my friends, like, everyone in my circle has been asking me, like, oh my God, how did you meet him? And I was like, I just was myself. Yeah. I kept going to places where I wanted to be. We met at a retreat, you know? And so that's a big thing that I just wanted to share with the ladies.
That's a beautiful, beautiful share. Yeah. Being authentically yourself and not settling.
No.
You know, that's the other thing I've always refused to do. It's like, no, I know my worth. I know my value. I don't need someone outside of me to fulfill me. I'm completely satisfied with myself. And I know it's inevitable that the right reflection comes along. And, you know, it's not if, but when. And really telling those stories. And that self-love is such a crucial component.
Yeah, that's what I did for 3 years. It was just like, okay, how can I love myself more? And boom, then he came along.
It will inevitably reflect back to you the love you're giving to yourself. Yeah. That's how it works. Wow. So for those who want to follow you, connect with you, et cetera, what's the best way for them to do that?
Mia Magic is my YouTube and my Instagram, MIAMAGIK, just K. And you can watch the show. You can follow me there. Always, you know, I'm putting up all my vlogs from my Egypt and Greece and Jordan trip are coming up in the next couple of weeks. And so much magic. So much magic. And then, like, we'll probably be doing season 2 in South Africa with the White Lions. So that will be very exciting. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to reconvene on this when you get back from that, or maybe even on Optimistic. And this has been super epic.
Yeah, great. Can I close them out?
Yeah.
You close them out?
You close them out.
Okay, great.
Although I do have one question. So should we have that?
Yes, have that first. We'll just leave you. We'll leave you with a blessing, guys.
Okay. So my last question for you.
Yeah.
In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Mia Magic?
The meaning of life is awakening to our innate divinity, knowing that every single person around us is a reflection of us. Every situation is meant to serve and support us in our highest growth and evolution, and that it is all a game. It's a joke, and we get to play it, and it is a movie, and we're the director and the writer and the projector and the screen that it's all being projected on and the audience watching it. And that all we're here to do is remember that and release anything that keeps us stuck or afraid of that remembrance and stuck away from it, because really we're meant to be gods and goddesses, and we're meant to know ourselves and each other as divine. And I think that that's the meaning of life, just like pleasure and fun and bliss and beauty and joy and magic, and being brave enough to release anything that keeps us from that.
Bam. You are inspired, my friend. In spirit. Inspiration.
In spirit. That's right.
Woo.
Good.
Okay, well, let's close this out with a blessing, shall we?
Oh, Mother, Father, God, great creator, to all of you positive heads, may your minds be opened and expanded. May any of your wounds be healed and nurtured. May you be fed by the goddess and the great creatrix of all life. May you be sweetly, sweetly nourished and tenderly held. May the powers of your womb and your deep innate wisdom be awakened. May you remember, may all of the parts of yourself be reconnected and reignited and realigned to be in service of your highest purpose and mission. May you know yourselves as magic, as gods and goddesses, and remember that everyone else is just you being reflected back to you by your own holographic consciousness. May we all come together in sweetness. May the nectars of life and the great sacred waters run clear and clean and deep. May we heal ourselves and this planet and live on heaven on earth. Bless.
Woo! That was amazing. Yes, everywhere you go, you're there waiting for yourself. And one final thing I want to throw out there for any of you guys who want to come and mix it up here at the Mystic Manor. Maybe you'll meet Mia. She's flitting around on a broomstick from time to time.
Yes, I am.
And others like her. We have some spots here in March and April. Right now, we're still early in March, but as of this recording, we have some spots in March and April. And because those are the least traveled to times, we've decided to hook it up for you guys who financially it's been a little challenging to get here previously, where it's normally $29.50 for the week. We're pairing you up with someone else in a room, and it's $13.33 for the week. Yeah, you couldn't stay in a place in Venice for that, much less the Mystic Manor, all the transformational work that's being done, all the events, all the...
So much magic.
So much magic. And so, if that's of interest to you, definitely now's the time, especially before Optimistic gets released and a whole new audience is hearing about this place. You can go to calendly.com/mystic deal, and you can schedule a time to chat with one of the Optimistic elves about coming. And you can also check out more at optimistic.tv. There's some videos and that sort of thing. But with that being said, thank you, Mia Magic, for making this such a magical episode. I'm so lit up and inspired right now. And all of you out there listening, love you all so, so much. Until next time, journey well. And if you're feeling the call to come for a week retreat-style Mystic Manor immersion, remember to go now and book your time to speak with me directly about stepping into the optimistic vortex at calendly.com/talk with Brandon while there are still spots left. Otherwise, I look forward to co-creating magic with you at the Mystic Manor.